Have you ever wondered what a revolution sounds like at its inception? Not the polished, packaged products sold back to the masses, but the raw, chaotic, and dangerously uncertain sound of creation itself. Forget the stadium pyrotechnics, the inflatable pigs, the monolithic concept albums, and the inter-band psychodrama that would later define their legend and line their pockets. Travel back to a sterile, unforgivingly lit television studio in San Francisco on April 30th, 1970. Here, for the local public broadcasting station KQED, Pink Floyd, a band still reeling from the psychological amputation of its brilliant fractured founder and desperately searching for a new voice, plugged in and laid bare the beautiful, sprawling mess of their own becoming. This wasn't a concert, it was a public exorcism. A sonic vivisection broadcast in living color. It was a snapshot of four men grappling with a ghost, navigating the treacherous waters of their own ambition, and stumbling, with breathtaking audacity, toward a future they couldn't possibly have imagined. To grasp the monumental importance of that hour-long broadcast, one must first immerse oneself in the specific, acrid atmosphere of 1970. The utopian dream of the 60s had curdled. The Beatles, the very sun around which the pop universe had revolved, had officially dissolved just weeks earlier, leaving a power vacuum of immense proportions. The hippie ideal had been brutally trampled in the mud of Woodstock, commercialized into parody, and finally stabbed to death at the Altamont Speedway Free Festival. The air was thick with paranoia and disillusionment. Into this landscape of broken promises and shifting paradigms, a new kind of rock music was emerging, one that eschewed the 3-minute pop single in favor of long-form composition, instrumental virtuosity, and lyrical themes that delved into mythology, science fiction, and social commentary. It was dubbed progressive rock, and bands like King Crimson, Yes, and Genesis were its new standard-bearers. And where was Pink Floyd in this new world order? They were outliers, pioneers who had inadvertently helped lay the groundwork for this movement, but now found themselves in a creative no-man's land. They were a band adrift, haunted by the incandescent self-immolation of their original leader, Syd Barrett. Syd was the diamond, the madcap genius whose acid-drenched nursery rhymes and unpredictable avant-garde guitar work had defined their genesis. But by 1968, the diamond had shattered. His prodigious LSD consumption had pushed his already fragile psyche past the point of no return, rendering him a beautiful vacant shell, incapable of functioning, let alone leading a band. The decision to oust him was not a malicious coup, but an act of brutal pragmatism, a choice between the band's survival and its founder's spiraling descent into madness. It was a wound that would never fully heal, a source of profound guilt and creative impetus that would fuel Roger Waters' most enduring lyrical obsessions for decades to come. Into this void stepped David Gilmour, a childhood friend of Barrett's from Cambridge. Gilmour was everything Barrett was not: grounded, reliable, and technically proficient, with a lyrical, blues-inflected guitar style and a voice as smooth as polished riverstone. His arrival wasn't a simple replacement. It was a fundamental alteration of the band's DNA. The Pink Floyd that entered the KQED studios was a four-headed beast, learning to walk again. It was a tense, often unspoken negotiation between four distinct personalities: Roger Waters, the band's intellectual anchor, his burgeoning conceptual ambition and cynical worldview beginning to assert itself; Richard Wright, the quiet, classically trained keyboardist, the true architect of the band's atmospheric soundscapes; Nick Mason, the unflappable, jazz-inflected drummer, providing a fluid architectural foundation; and Gilmour, the new blood, tasked with the impossible job of honoring the past while forging a new path forward. The setlist for the broadcast, titled An Hour with Pink Floyd, is a testament to this transitional state. It was a raw, unfiltered document of their live show at the time, a mix of atmospheric film soundtrack pieces, pastoral folk meditations, and long-form instrumental explorations that defied easy categorization. They opened with the colossal epic, then known by its working title, The Amazing Pudding, which would soon be officially christened Atom Heart Mother. On the album released later that year, the piece would be a grand, if somewhat unwieldy affair, augmented by a full brass section and choir arranged by the avant-garde composer Ron Geeson. Here, in the KQED studio, stripped of its orchestral bombast, the composition is revealed in its purest form, a pure, unadulterated showcase of the band's improvisational telepathy. It begins with Gilmour's slide guitar, a mournful, keening cry that hangs in the air like a desert mirage. The band enters with a stately, almost funereal pace, establishing a theme that is both majestic and melancholic. This is not rock and roll as rebellion. This is rock and roll as architecture, the slow, deliberate construction of a sonic cathedral. Wright's Farfisa and Hammond organs are the key, laying down ethereal, ghostly textures that create a vast, empty canvas for Gilmour's guitar to explore. His playing throughout the broadcast is a revelation. The searing, perfectly structured, and emotionally resonant solos that would become his trademark are not yet fully formed. Instead, we hear a guitarist thinking aloud, his lines searching, questioning, and occasionally exploding into moments of pure, blues-drenched catharsis. He is still finding his voice within the band, and that process of discovery is utterly captivating. The middle section, later dubbed Funky Dung, sees the band lock into a surprisingly slinky blues-based groove, a reminder that beneath the cosmic explorations lay a solid foundation of rhythm and blues. Stripped bare, Atom Heart Mother is revealed not as a pretentious folly, but as a bold, audacious experiment in long-form composition, a testament to their collective confidence and burgeoning musical ambition. The sterile, audience-free environment of the television studio, with its harsh lighting and unforgiving multi-camera setup, becomes an unwitting participant in the drama. There is no room for rock star posturing, no adoring crowd to feed off. The four musicians are utterly absorbed in their craft, their focus absolute. The camera work is intimate, almost invasive, lingering on their hands, their faces, the subtle, nonverbal cues that pass between them. We see the sweat and concentration, the sheer physical and emotional effort that went into creating these soundscapes. This is most evident during the performance of Careful with That Axe, Eugene, a piece that had been a cornerstone of their live set for years, and a masterclass in tension and release. It begins in near silence, a slow, menacing build-up driven by Waters' simple, hypnotic one-note bass line, and Wright's shimmering, ominous organ swells. Mason's drumming is a study in restraint, his gentle cymbal taps and mallet-driven tom-toms adding to the creeping sense of dread. Gilmour contributes delicate, whispered guitar phrases that seem to hang in the air, like dust motes in a sunbeam. The tension builds to an almost unbearable point, a sonic representation of a descent into madness. Then, it happens. Roger Waters, his face contorted, unleashes his now legendary, blood-curdling scream, a moment of pure, primal release that is both terrifying and exhilarating. It is the sound of the id unleashed, a cathartic explosion that shatters the carefully constructed tension. The band erupts into a chaotic, free-form jam, a sonic maelstrom that mirrors the psychological fragmentation the piece so brilliantly evokes. In the context of the band's history, that scream feels like more than just a theatrical device. It is the collective howl of a band still processing the trauma of losing its founder, a raw, unfiltered expression of pain and confusion. Yet the broadcast is not all darkness and chaos. The set features quieter, more reflective moments that highlight the band's surprising versatility and deep-seated Englishness. Grantchester Meadows, a gentle pastoral folk song penned by Waters, is performed acoustically by Waters and Gilmour. It is a nostalgic ode to their shared childhood home of Cambridge, its idyllic imagery of lazy afternoons by the river, a stark contrast to the cosmic explorations that bookend it. The performance is enhanced by pre-recorded sound effects of birdsong and buzzing flies, an early and effective use of musique concrète that would become a hallmark of their later work. This performance in particular is often cited by aficionados as superior to the studio version on the sprawling, uneven double album Umaguma. Gilmour's delicate harmonies add a layer of warmth and depth, and the intimate setting lends the song an air of genuine, heartfelt nostalgia. It reveals a crucial aspect of the Pink Floyd psyche, the constant tension between the vast, impersonal cosmos and the deeply personal, almost sentimental longing for a lost English innocence. This pastoral mood continues with Green is the Color, another gentle, folk-tinged piece from their soundtrack to the film More. Sung by Gilmore, it serves as a beautiful, lyrical prelude to the sonic apocalypse of A Saucer Full of Secrets. This juxtaposition is key to understanding their art. They were masters of dynamics, not just in terms of volume, but in terms of emotion. They could lull you into a state of pastoral bliss before plunging you into the heart of a supernova. A Saucer Full of Secrets, a multi-part instrumental suite that had been a live staple for years, is a perfect microcosm of their creative process. It is a journey through chaos, a study in controlled entropy. The piece moves through distinct movements: the frantic, percussive chaos of the opening, the menacing, militaristic drum patterns of Storm Signal, and finally, the glorious organ-led resolution of Celestial Voices. It is the sound of conflict and resolution, of a band wrestling with dissonance and emerging into a state of grace. Wright's performance here is nothing short of magnificent. His funereal organ chords at the piece's climax are a premonition of the grand, elegiac sound that would define The Great Gig in the Sky and Us and Them. The inclusion of Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun provides the most direct link to their psychedelic past. It is a track unique in their discography, as it is the only studio recording widely believed to contain contributions from all 5 members, though the exact nature of Gilmore's guitar part, played alongside Barrett's, remains a topic of debate among aficionados. Penned by Waters, its hypnotic 2-chord structure, esoteric lyrics, and Mason's malleted ritualistic drumming are a clear holdover from the Barrett era. Yet, in the hands of the 1970 lineup, the song is transformed. It becomes a vehicle for extended trance-like improvisation, a dark, ritualistic jam that showcases Wright's masterful use of keyboard textures to create a sense of vast, interstellar space. It is the sound of the old Floyd being reinterpreted and assimilated by the new Floyd, a respectful nod to their origins before they blasted off into a new orbit. What the KQED performance ultimately captures, with an honesty that is both unflinching and deeply moving, is the sound of a band forging a new identity in real time. This was a period of intense, almost desperate experimentation. They were consciously moving away from the song-based psychedelia of their early years and toward the long-form, conceptually unified pieces that would come to define them. Their creative process, as they often described in interviews from the period, was one of communal exploration. They would enter the studio with nothing prepared, jamming for hours on end, sifting through the chaos in search of happy accidents and moments of inspiration. The sprawling, improvisational nature of the KQED set is a direct reflection of this process. It's not always perfect. There are moments where the jams meander, where the energy dips, but that is precisely what makes it so compelling. It is the sound of risk, of 4 musicians pushing themselves and their audience into uncharted territory, without a map or a safety net. This performance stands as a crucial document, a Rosetta Stone for understanding the transition between the Syd Barrett-led psychedelic pop group and the global phenomenon that would create the Dark Side of the Moon just 3 years later. It reveals a band that was, in many ways, more democratic and collaborative than they would ever be again. Waters' conceptual tyranny had not yet fully asserted itself, and the music feels like a genuine conversation between 4 distinct, equally important musical voices. It is a raw, honest, and deeply human performance, a glimpse of a legendary band not as rock gods, but as working musicians covered in sweat, searching for a sound, a direction, and a future. For 1 hour, under the hot, unforgiving lights of a San Francisco television studio, they found it. They captured lightning in a bottle, creating a piece of art that was both a requiem for their lost leader and a defiant statement of their own rebirth. Thankfully, the tapes were rolling.